"Don't come to the hospital. You'll stress me out," my husband texted. He was getting a routine procedure. His ex was in the room. When I showed up anyway, the nurse said, "Are you the wife?" I replied, "Not anymore," and handed him divorce papers in his hospital bed. "Don't come to the hospital. You'll stress me out." That was the text from my husband, Jason, at 7:14 a.m. He was getting a routine procedure, the kind you schedule weeks in advance, the kind that doesn't require drama. I stared at the message while I stood in my kitchen barefoot on cold tile, my coffee going lukewarm next to an open laptop. I had already rearranged my work calendar because I'm an accountant and my brain refuses to wing it with anything, especially time. I typed back, "I'm your wife." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Then, "Just, please, I don't want you making this a thing." Making what a thing? I put my hair in a clip, grabbed my tote bag with my charger and a little notebook, because I'm me, and drove anyway. At the hospital, the lobby smelled like sanitizer and burnt toast. I checked in at the desk, gave Jason's name, and the woman behind the counter frowned like my existence wasn't on the schedule. "Room 416, she said, then added, "Only 2 visitors at a time." "Of course," I replied. The elevator felt too slow. My fingers kept tapping my phone like it owed me answers. When I reached his room, the door was cracked open. I could hear Jason's voice, low, gentle, the voice he saved for people he wanted to impress. I pushed the door wider. His ex-wife, Lauren, was sitting in the chair next to his bed, not standing awkwardly, not dropping something off, sitting like she belonged there. Her hand was on his forearm, her purse on the side table like it had always lived there. Jason looked up and went pale. Lauren turned her head and smiled, small and polite, like we were co-workers at a forced team lunch. A nurse stepped in behind me, glanced at the clipboard, then at me. "Are you the wife?" she asked. I felt something in my chest go quiet, like a file drawer closing. I heard myself answer, calm and clear, "Not anymore." I reached into my tote, pulled out an envelope I'd prepared 2 nights earlier, but told myself I was being paranoid, and placed it on Jason's blanket. Divorce papers, in his hospital bed. Jason's mouth opened, but no sound came out. And that's how a routine procedure turned into the moment I finally stopped pretending I was married to someone who kept treating me like a wallet with a pulse. My name is Megan. I was 34. I worked as a senior accountant for a logistics company in Columbus, Ohio. And no, this wasn't the first time something like this had happened. It was just the first time it happened under fluorescent lights with a nurse watching. I grew up in a house where being responsible wasn't a compliment. It was a job assignment. My parents had 2 kids, my younger brother, Tyler, and me. Tyler was funny, charming, always going through something, always one crisis away from needing help. I was the kid who got told, "You're so mature," which is adult code for, "We're going to lean on you." When Tyler forgot his lunch money, Mom would dig through her purse like she was defusing a bomb. When I needed money for a field trip, I got a lecture about planning ahead. When Tyler got a D in math, Dad took him for burgers and said, "We'll figure it out." When I got a B in chemistry, I got, "What happened?" So I learned early. Love came with conditions. Approval came when I fixed things without making noise. By the time I was 16, I had a part-time job at a grocery store. I paid for my own phone, my own gas, my own senior photos. When I got accepted into a state university, I covered what scholarships didn't. I took out loans. I worked 2 jobs. I ate a lot of ramen and pretended it was a personality trait. Tyler? Tyler needed time to find himself. My parents paid his community college tuition twice because he changed programs. Then he dropped out. At 22, I was working full-time and finishing my accounting degree at night. I had a spreadsheet for everything: rent, groceries, minimum loan payments. I used cash envelopes like I was 90 years old. That's how I became the fixer. Not because I loved control, because control was the only way I knew to feel safe. The first big unfairness hit when I was 25. Tyler called me crying because his car got repossessed. He needed $1,800 to reinstate the loan. I said no, I didn't have it. My mom called the next morning. "Megan," she said in that soft voice she used when she was already disappointed, "your brother is really struggling." "I'm struggling too," I said, staring at my bank app. I had $312 until payday. "He's family," she replied. So I moved money off my credit card, paid the reinstatement fee, and told myself it was temporary. It wasn't. Then there was my dad's dental work. Then my mom's unexpected property tax bill. Then Tyler needed help with rent just for 1 month. I kept thinking, once they're stable, it'll stop. Spoiler, stability was never the goal. Access was. When I met Jason, I thought I was finally stepping into something normal. He was charming in a quiet way. He worked in IT project management at a hospital network. Good job, decent money. He had a son, Noah, from his marriage to Lauren. He talked about co-parenting like he was proud of it. "I'm not like those guys who disappear," he told me on our third date. "I take care of my responsibilities." That sounded like home to me. I didn't realize that for Jason, taking care often meant making someone else do it. At first, it was small stuff. He'd forget his wallet and I'd pay for dinner. He'd promise to Venmo me and then get distracted. He'd call me from the parking lot of a pharmacy. "Babe, do you mind covering this? I'll pay you back Friday." Friday came. Then another Friday. I noticed. I always notice. But I also had decades of practice swallowing that feeling and telling myself I was overreacting. When we got married, he said the sentence that should have made me stop and breathe. "We should just combine everything. It's easier. We're a team." A team. I liked that word. It sounded like relief. So I added him to my checking account. We set up a joint household account. I put him as my beneficiary on my life insurance and my 401k, because that's what married people do. And because I'm an accountant, I also built our budget. I tracked our bills, I set up the auto payments, I created a shared calendar for due dates. Jason called me organized, like it was cute. I didn't realize I was building the infrastructure for him to quietly move money without asking. I also didn't realize Lauren was going to be the third person in our marriage, financially, emotionally, and eventually physically present in a hospital room. The first time I saw the pattern clearly was about 8 months into our marriage. I was reconciling our joint account like I always did on Sunday mornings. Coffee, laptop, bank website. It was basically my version of meditation. I saw a transfer, $600 to Lauren. No note, no explanation. I walked into the living room where Jason was watching sports like the world had never touched him. "Hey," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Why did you send Lauren $600? He didn't look away from the TV. Noah needed stuff. Stuff like what? School supplies, clothes, kid things. I waited. He sighed dramatically like I was the problem for asking. "Megan, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal that you moved money out of our account without telling me?" "It's my son," he snapped, finally looking at me. "Do you want me to look like a deadbeat?" There it was, the guilt lever. I didn't want Noah to suffer. I liked Noah. He was sweet, awkward, always asking me to help with homework. I'd bought him a winter coat last year because his zipper was broken and he didn't want to bother Dad. So I swallowed it. "Okay," I said. "Next time, tell me." Jason nodded like he'd agreed to something generous. "Sure." 2 weeks later, it was $450, then $280. Then Lauren texted him one night while we were eating dinner. Lauren, "Noah's dentist says braces are urgent." Jason, "How much?" Lauren, "They want $2,400 down." Jason, "Okay." I read it over his shoulder because the phone was on the table. "Jason," I said slowly, "we don't have $2,400 lying around." He leaned back, annoyed. "We do. You're always acting like we're broke." "We're not broke because I don't spend money like it's imaginary," I replied. He grabbed his phone. "I'm not letting Noah go without braces." "Then let's look at the payment plan," I said. "Let's call the office." Jason stood up so fast his chair scraped. "I don't have time for your spreadsheets right now." That night, he transferred the money anyway. I pulled it from savings to keep our mortgage auto pay from bouncing, and I told myself, it's for a kid, it's fine. Then came Jason's mother, Diane. Diane was one of those women who spoke in sighs and implications. "Oh, honey," she'd say, "I hate to ask, but my car is making a sound again." Jason would look at me like I was the answer key. It started as $120 for a mechanic, then $380 for new tires. Then Diane couldn't afford her new prescription, and Jason said, "We'll handle it." "We?" I asked. He kissed my forehead and said, "You're so good with money." That was his favorite compliment. It always meant, "You'll make this work." By year 2 of our marriage, my budget wasn't about goals anymore. It was leak management. Every month I'd think we were stable, and then someone would poke another hole. Lauren's emergency, Diane's unexpected bill, Tyler's short-term problem. Meanwhile, Jason's spending got casual. He leased a truck without discussing it because he needed reliability. Payment, $612 a month. He upgraded his phone because his camera sucked. Another $48 a month on the plan. He started talking about a business idea with his friend that needed a little startup money. "How much is a little?" I asked. "Like $5,000. I laughed, thinking he was joking. He wasn't. "Megan," he said, wounded, "I thought you believed in me." I didn't give him $5,000, so he took it. I found it in our joint account as 3 separate transfers: $1,700, $1,600, $1,700 to an account I didn't recognize. When I confronted him, he didn't apologize. He got angry. "You're acting like I stole from you," he said. "You did," I replied. "It's our money." "It's money I earn," I said, my voice shaking. "I'm the one working extra during close weeks. I'm the one keeping the bills paid." Jason stared at me like I'd just admitted something ugly. And then he did the thing my family always did. He punished me with silence. For 3 days, he barely spoke. He stomped around the house. He answered questions with one-word replies. He made me feel like I was the villain for expecting honesty. On day 4, he showed up with flowers and said, "I'm sorry you felt blindsided." Not sorry he did it. Sorry, I reacted. I accepted it because at that point I thought keeping peace was the same as saving a marriage. The stakes jumped again when our credit card statement came in and the balance was $7,942 higher than I expected. I sat at the kitchen table flipping through line items. Furniture store, $1,318. Another furniture store, $620. Kids clothing site, $287. Grocery delivery, $193. I recognized none of it. Jason walked in, opened the fridge, and said, "What's for dinner?" I held up the statement. He didn't even pretend confusion. "Oh, yeah, that." "That?" I repeated. "Lauren needed help," he said like it was obvious. "Noah's been sleeping on a couch. Her landlord sold the place. She had to move fast." "So you bought her furniture." "It's for Noah," Jason insisted. "I'm looking at a $620 rug, Jason." He slammed the fridge door. "Do you hear yourself?" "Yes," I said quieter. "Do you hear yourself?" He stepped closer, voice low. "You're making this about money again." I almost laughed. Almost. Because money wasn't the only problem. It was the receipt trail of a bigger truth. Jason didn't see me as a partner. He saw me as a system, a resource, a solution. A few weeks later, he told me he had a routine procedure scheduled. "Nothing serious," he said. "Outpatient. I'll be fine." I asked when. He gave me a date. He told me the hospital. I offered to take the day off. He said, "No, it's fine. I'll Uber." That was weird. Jason hated spending money on rides. The night before, I set my laptop aside and said, "I'll come with you anyway, just to be there." He didn't look at me. He scrolled his phone and said, "I don't want you there." "Why?" "Because you stress me out." I stared at him. By sitting quietly in a chair? Jason finally met my eyes. They were flat. "I just don't want you making everything clinical and intense. Let me handle it. My stomach twisted. Who's taking you? No one, he said too fast. I'm fine. Then came the text the next morning. Don't come. And that's how I ended up in that hallway, in that hospital, looking at Lauren sitting next to my husband like she was the default. Jason tried to explain when I stood there holding that envelope. Megan, this is not what it looks like, Lauren said softly. We're just here for Noah's dad. Noah's dad, not my husband. Jason reached for my hand. I stepped back. The nurse shifted awkwardly. Do you want me to step out? I nodded. Yes, please. When the door closed, I looked at Jason, then at Lauren. I pay for this insurance, I said, voice steady. I pay the mortgage. I pay half your mother's bills. I've been keeping this entire operation running while you quietly fund someone else's life. Jason's face hardened. Don't do this here. Lauren stood up, offended. This isn't appropriate. I laughed once, sharp and tired. What's inappropriate is you sitting in my place. Jason said, You're overreacting. She's just support. Support, like my bank account had been. That was the last straw. Because the betrayal wasn't just that Lauren was in the room, it was that Jason had actively tried to keep me out. And it made one ugly truth clear. He didn't want his wife. He wanted my benefits. I left the room before I said something I couldn't take back. Not because I was protecting Jason, because I was protecting myself from slipping into my old role, begging someone to treat me fairly. I walked to the quiet corner near the vending machines, sat down, and opened my notes app. I wrote one sentence. I am not funding a life I'm not included in. Then I did what I always did when things got scary. I made a plan. First, documentation. I screenshotted Jason's "Don't come" text. I photographed the visitor log on the wall where Lauren's name was listed. I pulled up our bank app and saved the last 6 months of transfers. I forwarded myself the credit card statement. Second, professional help. I called a family law attorney my coworker had used. It was 9:02 a.m. I got a receptionist. I said, I need an emergency consult today. When she asked why, I said, financial entanglement and upcoming medical liabilities. That got me an appointment at 3 p.m. Third, money security. From the hospital lobby, I opened a new checking account at a different bank on my phone. I changed my direct deposit through my company's HR portal during my lunch break because payroll changes don't care about your emotional breakdown. I moved my paycheck buffer, $8,400, from the joint savings into my new account. I left enough in the joint account to cover the mortgage and utilities for the month. Not kindness, strategy. I didn't want him claiming I abandoned obligations. I froze my credit with all 3 bureaus. It took 15 minutes and a lot of security questions about addresses I lived at 10 years ago. I removed Jason as an authorized user on my credit card. I changed every password, banking, email, utilities, even Netflix. Fourth, legal boundaries. At 3 p.m., I sat in a small office with a woman named Andrea who wore glasses on a chain and spoke like she'd seen every version of But We Were in Love. I slid my folder across her desk. Andrea scanned the statements, the transfers, the credit card charges. You're the primary earner? She asked. Yes. And the health insurance is through your employer? Yes. Okay, she said. We file today. We request temporary orders. We protect you from further dissipation of marital assets. It was the first time someone used a word that matched what it felt like. Dissipation. Like money evaporating because someone thinks it's owed to them. Andrea drafted the petition. We filed for divorce that week. She also sent a formal notice to Jason that communication would go through counsel. That night, I went home, packed a bag, and stayed with my friend Tessa. I didn't do it dramatically. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I just removed myself from the machine. 2 days later, Jason was served, and the boundary was in place, legal, financial, and real. Jason didn't call me at first. He texted. Jason, so you're really doing this? Jason, in a hospital? That was cruel. Jason, Lauren was there because you weren't. Jason, you always make everything about money. I read it 3 times, then typed one sentence, "Please communicate through my attorney." Then I put my phone face down and ate cereal for dinner at Tessa's kitchen counter like I was 19 again. The reactions came in waves. Jason's mom, Diane, left a voicemail that started with a sigh. "Megan, I don't understand why you're doing this to our family. Jason is under so much stress. You know he doesn't handle pressure well." My mom called next. "I heard you're getting divorced," she said, like I'd announced I was joining a circus. "Yes," I replied. She paused. "Well, just don't make it messy." I almost laughed. The only person making anything messy was the man who kept trying to lock me out of my own marriage. Tyler, of course, sent, "Hey, can you still help me with that car insurance thing?" I stared at that text for a long time. Then I blocked his number. Not forever, just long enough to remember what silence felt like. Jason tried guilt next. He sent a photo of Noah with the caption, "He's asking where you are." It hit me hard because I cared about that kid. So I answered carefully, "I love Noah. This isn't his fault. But I cannot stay married to someone who lies to me and uses our finances without consent." Jason responded, "So you're punishing my son?" I didn't respond, because I was done playing tug-of-war with my own sanity. The divorce process was boring in the way only real life can be. Paperwork, disclosures, a mandatory mediation where Jason acted shocked that I wanted an accurate accounting of where nearly $28,000 had gone over 2 years. He tried to call the transfers support. Andrea called them unilateral spending. In the end, we split assets like adults. I kept the house because it had been bought mostly with my savings, and I could afford it alone. Jason kept his truck and the loan attached to it. The court noted the credit card charges and the transfers when dividing the remaining savings. Nobody got destroyed. There was no cinematic moment where the judge applauded. There was just the quiet correction of a system that had been draining me. A year later, my life looked simpler. Not perfect, just sane. I had $19,600 in savings again because the leaks were gone. My grocery budget stayed my grocery budget. My paycheck didn't disappear into emergencies that weren't mine. I slept through the night. My shoulders stopped living up by my ears. I started going on walks after work without checking my phone every 2 minutes, waiting for another urgent request. I also learned what it felt like to say no without writing an essay. As for Jason, he adjusted. He got a second job doing contract IT support for a while. He moved into a smaller apartment closer to his hospital network. He and Lauren figured out their co-parenting without my credit card hovering in the background. My parents stopped calling as much when they realized family didn't unlock my bank account anymore. Tyler eventually got a job with benefits. Amazing what happens when the safety net stops being one exhausted sister. One night, about 14 months after the hospital, I sat alone at my kitchen table with takeout pad thai and a cheap candle from Target. My laptop was open, but not for budgeting chaos. I was planning something fun, a weekend trip, a small cabin, just me, 2 nights. Total cost, $412. No guilt, no negotiation, no emergency. My phone buzzed once, a text from an unknown number. "Hey, it's Noah. Dad got me a phone. I hope you're okay." I stared at it, throat tight. Then I typed back, "Hi, buddy. I'm okay. I hope you are too. I'm always rooting for you." I set the phone down, took a bite of noodles, and looked around my quiet kitchen. No raised voices, no financial ambush, no pressure disguised as love. Just peace. And the moral is simple, even if it took me years to learn. If someone only wants you when you're paying, they don't want you. They want access. Boundaries aren't cruel. They're financial hygiene. They're self-respect. And sometimes they start with a nurse asking a question you never thought you'd answer out loud.